So you want to know my process for making art? That's a great question because I would like to know my process as well. So today I'm going to show you a project I'm working on. In fact, I've got numerous projects. In fact, let's talk about all the projects I'm working on right now. I'm not sure if I'm done with this one yet. Sometimes I look at this and I go, yes, it's done. And other times I look at it and I'm like, don't know. I'm not sure what yet I'm going to do with it yet. Maybe it's done, maybe it's not. That's one. So number one is always making. That's the title of that piece back there. And number two is that chair. I don't have a name for it yet, but we'll go with pink chair for now. This chair right here. I started to paint it pink and then I realized for a second, like, wait a minute. I don't have the base for it yet. I don't have something to fill up this hole just yet. And I've got a buddy who's actually working with me on this. He's going to make a piece that just sits on top of this. So I'm waiting for him to finish that. And as soon as that comes in, then I'll get started on finishing this up. That's not the chair that's unbalanced. It's my floor. Number three is a panel assemblage that I've been working on. So that's this grouping right here. And I was working on this for about a hot minute. And then my view on art kind of changed. And so this didn't make as much sense. So it's just kind of sitting here off to the side of my trash heap until I figure out what I want to do with it next. And the fourth project are all of these cans here. I've got all of these. I've got a few over here that haven't been painted. I've got some over there on the shelf that haven't been touched, but I've got quite a few of them that I need to work on. I thought to myself, of all the things that I could possibly work on today to show you my process, I thought maybe this would be the thing. I mean, that's the thing I'm going to work on. I'm just not sure if it's going to work out the way I want it to work out. We're just going to have to find out because that's how I make work. I don't know what I'm going to make until I've already made it. But let's dig into the process, shall we? First, some basics about what's happening here already. This actually isn't technically a spray can. This was actually a can of butane that I found on the beach. It just happens to resemble a spray can. You can see it's got this kind of funky little thing going on right here. And yeah, I just kind of hammered that down to kind of make it look like that. And then I put a spray tip on top of it. I glue that in there. I give it a base coat, which for this one was the blue. And then I started to do this kind of ombre purple thing. But I wasn't 100% sure where I was headed with all of these. I wasn't sure how I was going to implement my current style, my current process for making art onto this three-dimensional surface. And this will be a good experiment because I want to do that same thing with the chair. I want to do it more with that assemblage. But if you've been paying attention to my work at all recently, then you know that I've been working with paper a lot. And so I'm trying to figure out, like, how do I make paper work with something like this? The only idea that I have at this moment is to glue it on, tear it off, glue it back on, tear it off again, and keep going until I find something that's kind of cool. So it almost makes this ombre thing that I did here invalid, but that's okay. We'll work with it. Mod Podge. This is my go-to glue of choice, my acrylic-based glue securing substance. You can mix it with paint. You can mix it with other things. You can use it as a glue. You can use it as a paste up. You can use it as a sealer. I don't know if this is 100% like acid-free and you know, like UV protected and all that. We're not trying to make gallery and museum work right here. We're just trying to make work. I want to make this a little bit more pliable first. So I'm going to take some water and I'm just going to kind of moisten it up to make it a little bit more, you know, flexible. There. Now it's all flimsy and splashing everywhere. I just realized I have a bunch of brushes that I haven't cleaned out in a long time. That ought to be fun. You know, sometimes using the old brushes in the water that's been sitting there for a while, you know, not a good idea. But I don't take really good care of my brushes. Plain and simple, I just don't take good care of my brushes. But that's okay because sometimes the stuff that I do to the brush is what makes the brush strokes interesting to me. Mixing up a little bit of the Mod Podge and then, oops, I'm just dripping it. And then I'm just gonna basically apply it pretty loosely. I'm just gonna take this and just drape it. Now, the other thing is what I plan on doing is letting this dry up, but I'm not making it smooth. I'm kind of giving it some gaps, some air holes here, some pockets of air so that I have something that I can dig into once it's dry. So I'm gonna let that set up for a second. While this one's drying, I'm gonna go ahead and start working on these other two. And I just realized that I forgot to put a cap on this one. So we're gonna put a cap on that. Now, whenever I get these spray cans, I use Montana Gold for most of my cans. they always come with a cap. Something like this, sometimes a slightly different one, but they always come with a cap. Most of these gold ones are not great. I think most people toss them aside. If anybody uses these, let me know, because I don't. They just go in a bin, and then I forget about them until I need to put them onto one of these cans like this. Now, the problem is that this actually isn't a Montana Gold can. This is actually a primer can from Krylon, so this cap doesn't work here, so I'm gonna have to modify the cap. I know I had a sharp implement here somewhere. There we go. Let's go. Try not to cut off my finger. Safety first. So there's these little, I don't know if you're gonna be able to get those. Those little wings are keeping me from getting inside. So we need more heavy equipment. 1, 2, 3, 4. Something like that. A little off balance, a little wobbly, but that's okay. Super glue. I'm using Gorilla, but you can use any CA glue. Any CA glue will work. Hey, here's a hot tip if you didn't know this before. You wanna make CA glue or super glue like this, seize up really quickly. Put a little bit of baking soda, but you gotta work quick because it will work fast and it'll seize up really quick. I'm not doing that here, but it will. And we hold. Oh, by the way, if you're wondering why there's no air coming out here, it's because with every single can, I always put a hole right in the bottom just like that. Go to town with the glue. I don't have as much paper on that. Well, I guess I can always get more because, hey, guess what? I have a copy of Rad Scrap 2 right here. That's where this page came from, and that's where you can get your pages from. You can go to my website right now, get yourself a copy of Rad Scrap 2 or Rad Scrap 1, or you can get a combo of both. It's totally up to you. Link in the description. Down like that. Oh, there's this rogue piece right here, so we're just gonna place him randomly. Got all kinds of tears in it right there. I don't know how it's gonna work out, but it's gonna work out somehow. Let's get in a little sheet of something. Another piece of sheet. That one. That was not enough. There we go. Water. Spritz! Let's see. That side. That side, I think that side. Now I'm laying on top of the other one, which will probably end up being like they're not going to set up the right way, which just gives me more things to reach onto and tear. Like I said, there's got to be plenty of holes, little bubbles, little tear spots, and then it's got to be really dry. Because if it's not really dry, then all I'm going to do is just pull the whole thing right off. Let's wipe off a little bit excess there, and then one more time with this guy. Not nearly enough. I need more Mod Podge. Get it in the cracks and the crevices, and well, don't get it in your cracks and crevices, but get it into these cracks and crevices. Okay, there's 3 right there. This one's almost dry in the middle. These other 2 got to dry up. Be back in a moment. Actually, while I'm waiting for those to dry, I'm gonna go ahead and do something about these brushes because they are in some bad shape. Plus, there's something I want to talk to you about. Don't trip on the steps, Dave. Glad my wife isn't here to see that. So what I wanted to talk to you guys about is I have this idea about my work that I would really love to be able to create artwork that's like, when people see it, it's, damn, I gotta have that. But unfortunately, I don't know how to make that kind of art. I just don't know if anybody knows how to make that kind of art. I mean, maybe some people do, but it's a very difficult thing to have people be that ravenous about your work. And I don't think it really comes down to just being a great artist, because I know that if there's people out there that are like that, artists that are out there that are like that, it's because not so much that their art is great, but that they've built up notoriety enough for people to just want whatever it is that they put out. But for us normies, like, how does that work? Like, how do we get to that status, that level of being able to generate work that makes people just clamor to get to it? And I really only have 2 solutions that I can think of. First would be to just straight up sell out and just start making work that just appeals to the common person, or at least appeals to a certain subset of people that they feel like, oh, I just gotta do that. So like you go out and you paint pictures of Tupac and Biggie, or you go paint pictures of Basquiat and Andy Warhol, or you turn around and do drip paintings in weird and fanciful ways that just get people to be like, oh, I gotta have this work because it's interesting on Instagram. So number 1 isn't an option for me. I'm not gonna be selling types of work that just sells to a certain subset of people because I know it'll sell. That's not how I create legacy. That's not how I want to present my work. It's just not who I am. So the second option is to just become so good they can't ignore you. So then the question becomes, how do we do that? How do we become so good they can't ignore us? Well, it's gonna be different for all people, but For me, it's basically just putting myself out there into the world in ways that are comfortable for me. I can do this thing all the time. I can show up often. I can express myself in a way that is unique to me, and then I can just gravitate out from there. That means taking my stuff outside of the studio and putting it out into the world, interacting with other people, letting other people know who I am, and just keep repeating that same process until I find a community of people that are just like, God, I love hanging out with Dave. I gotta go buy his work. Now, that can be easier said than done, but what's not easier said than done is this. So after I glued these up, I took my little heat gun and I decided to warm them up a little bit just to get the cultures activated within the glue. Apparently, I also heated out all the air bubbles because this one actually glued really tight. And so I don't really have any tear points. I even tried scraping some away there and it just would not scrape. So this one's gonna take some more work. So we're gonna work with this one instead because it just came off a little bit cooler. This one's salvageable for sure. It just, I don't want to go back over that whole process again, so we're just going to go with this. When I'm looking at something like this, even if it's just a flat substrate like a piece of paper or something I work on, I'm really taking in and seeing what I get from these shapes and how I can add to them in a graphical way, because that's kind of my nature. This one's a little bit tougher because it's not flat, right? It's not easy to see all the angles. It's impossible to see all the angles at once. I just kind of have to take in, like, okay, I know that this section here needs something more because there's just not enough going on in here. Now, when I add things with markers like this, I usually go with organic shapes, like circles, some squiggly lines, sometimes some flowers or whatnot, just because it just feels right. And adding something as severe as this black pen, it's gonna be, like adding flowers would be weird because black flowers, I mean, sure, it may work once in a while, but that's not what I'm going for here. So I'm just gonna stick with some circles here. And I'm not trying for perfect circles either. So now I've got it here like this, but it feels too like, hey, here's a tube of black circles. So I'm gonna drift some off to the side here, almost as if it was like bubbles being blown out or blown towards something. Now that pen is oil-based, so I gotta let that set up for a second because otherwise I just get it all over everything and then I just end up retouching the can again and put it in weird ways. So we're gonna heat it up some more. I decided that I'm not just gonna leave this be at the yellow because it feels like it needs something more. And what things that I usually do or sometimes like to do is I like to actually add some paint right there on the nozzle, so almost as if this thing was spitting out paint itself, and then it drips down, and I'll show you what I mean. The reason for that is just basically to imply that this thing is a spray can and there's still some coming out of it. And so we're gonna use a completely radically different color, which is this pink, which is actually this paint can specifically, and if you back there, are made for that chair. But hey, it can spare a little bit. It's not rattling. Where's the rattle? I can't show you this on screen because I'd have to spray something in order to do it. I gotta spray towards something that, you know what I'm saying? Wear gloves. I should be wearing a mask. The mask's behind me. That's all I'm gonna spray, so I'll take my chances. Wear your mask, kids. That was precisely what I was going for. Now I'm gonna add some more floral stuff or something because I want to. Using Posca paint pens this time. The Molotov in green that I have is in the house and I don't wanna go get it. It looks pretty good here on camera, but these always come through a little bit weaker than what I want them to, so I'll have to go back and do that 2 times, maybe even 3. Heat treat! You don't want to do that too much though, because this on a hot surface like that is not a good plan. By the way, if you come this far in the video, I just want you to know thanks for that, and 2, that if you haven't already gotten your hands on a pre-sale copy of Mag Bash Volume 1, which the end for pre-sale is the end of this month. If you haven't done that yet and you've been wanting to do so, I definitely recommend that you do. Getting close to being sold out, and I'm going to be giving away one of these cans to one lucky person who orders for the pre-sale. So not only are you going to get a signed numbered copy of the book, because there's only going to be 100 copies printed, you're also going to get a signed and numbered copy of a limited edition print based on how many people buy for pre-sale. So if there's 25 people, there's more than that already. If there's 50 people, no, it's more than that. If there's 75 people who buy for the pre-sale, then I will only print 75. Then I'll throw out a bunch of goodies, and then one lucky person who will be selected randomly will get their hands on one of these cans whenever they're finished. That seems like a pretty good deal, especially for however much the book costs. Go head over there and go get it now. Link in the description. Anyway, back to the work. Now I'm thinking about this, about things I want to add to it, and there's a couple of things that I'm thinking about adding, but I'm not 100% sure if I'm gonna do them all. There's definitely one thing I'm going to add, which is a word mark that goes across this. And I'm trying to figure out what color should I add to it in order to make that word mark stand out and be interesting. The answer is I don't know yet. Still trying to figure out how to get this green more green. One of the reasons that I switched to Molotow as my paint pen of choice is because of the lack of opaqueness in these. That sometimes they just don't want to cooperate. No matter how many times I go over on top of this one, it just will not get more opaque. It's almost like it just moves the other paint away so that it can lay down new paint that you can see right through. Molotow, or Molotov, however you want to pronounce it. These are great. They're not perfect. Some colors are, still struggle with that, especially yellow or whatever. But these are pretty opaque and I like them. They're also more expensive, but worth it. And I think I found the color. Yes. I've got this one here, and when I dab it, it ends up coming out to be a pretty, almost cerulean, blue like that. And when I put them next to each other, it's almost a little too much close to that one right there. But I don't know, maybe that works. Maybe because all of this is basically covered up now, that it might look interesting to have something almost feel like it's popping through or popping out behind all of this stuff that I have on the can. Like I said before, folks, I shoot from the hip with most of what I'm doing. I don't know what I'm gonna do until I do it. I think I probably went a little big there. This is supposed to look very handwritten. It's not going that direction right now. We're going with it. I have absolutely no idea what I'm doing. I mean, I do, but I don't have a plan. That's for, oh, see, that was not good. Moving forward. That was not great, but that's okay. I don't know if I'm 100% sold on this color. Too late now, but at least I know that I've got it on here and I can always lay something on top of it, which is absolutely positively going to happen because this not working for me. It's not working for me at all. Not ready to show it. I think it's going to be a good old-fashioned white. This one I'm going to be taking my time with. It's a pretty thin nib and I want it to be, relatively straight. Crossing my fingers on that one. Okay, so they can't all be bangers. I'm not 100% stoked on that. I don't know if you can read it. It says make. Not way I wanted that to go. I have other plans for the other ones. Probably gonna say the same thing. There's also this aspect down here that I just feel like is empty right here, so I'm gonna fill that up. Simply with this pen right here. This is a Crink pen. This is also a oil-based pen, and it just, I don't know. I like them. If you hit them hard enough, they will splatter, they will drip. Sitting here holding this thing in front of my face. Hey, look at this thing for a minute while I do this other stuff. The color's going everywhere. That's okay. I'm not 100% stoked on that lettering. That really kind of drove me nuts. And then, of course, I started to have some failures here with the paint or whatever. That's okay. It is what it is. It's the nature of the beast of the way I do things. It's just one of these things that you experiment until you find out what it is that you want to do with. And this is kind of like a study. Not that I'll go ahead and produce another one exactly like this, because I won't, but this helped me better understand what it is I'm going to do with this one and with this one when I get to those. Now, this may or may not be the one that I give out as a free one. I don't know. Not particularly stoked on this, and I want people to love the one that I love. So instead, what I'll probably end up doing with this one is taking this out into the world, leaving it for some unsuspecting person to take home and enjoy in their home for free. Because that's how I roll. But we're not done yet. I gotta sign it, we gotta varnish it, and then we can go put it someplace. Very hard to sign on these round objects. Ta-da! Varnish! This one's definitely going outside. This stuff is powerful. I'll be right back. We have final aspect of it. It's still a little bit like I had to respray this part down here, so it's a little bit tacky. So I'm not going to touch that part. But yeah, there we go. There is the final. Let's not make a shadow over your own face, Dave. There we go. That's the final piece and looks pretty good. I'm digging it. Not digging the words. I'll do better next time. But that's basically the process. And I'll do more of these in the future if that's what you really want to see. But the fact of the matter is that it's all intuitive. I don't know what I'm going to get into until I get into it. I don't know how it's going to finish until I'm finished. And I'm okay with that. The only thing that matters at this point is how does this fit into the grander scheme of all the work that I want to produce? If I'm building my metaphorical empire of art and creativity and, connection between all the other creative people out there that I can find, how does this work with that? Simple. I'm going to go put it out in the world and give it away for free, and hopefully somebody comes back and says, Dave, I saw your can. Thanks very much. I'm going to follow you everywhere and buy your stuff. That's the pipe dream. Anyway, guys, I've been Dave. You've been awesome. I'll see you next time.